Sometimes signs of a friendship trauma bond could be much harder to recognize because it can be a lot more subtle. You may just wake up one day and realize that you feel kind of icky when it comes to hanging out with that person, that you're walking on eggshells, and that you just can't authentically be yourself 100%. So, we're going to talk about some signs of friendship trauma bonding and how it may show up in very subtle ways. Trauma bonding is a psychological term that describes a condition where there is a strong emotional connection between two people. However, one of those individuals utilizes tactics of abuse intermixed with positive reinforcement. This condition keeps the other person in a stance of being confused, walking on eggshells, always seeking the approval of the other person, and not quite understanding why and how the manipulative behaviors of that other person is causing them to feel the way they feel. The first phase of a trauma bond is the love bomb phase. This is where love bombing is utilized to develop an intense connection with the other person. This can look like showing excessive attention, giving lots of compliments, giving gifts, getting a lot of positive affirmation from the other person. You may feel intensely understood. It usually happens very quickly where this emotional connection occurs because you're getting a lot of positive reinforcement from the other person. This may create a dynamic where you feel like this person is irreplaceable because you're used to speaking to them every day, because they understand all of the dynamics in your life. They may have collected a lot of information about you, made you feel very comfortable to open up and talk about a lot of various things very quickly, and you feel like you don't want to lose this person in your life because you're so used to that type of attention. Another sign of trauma bonding is when your friend discourages you from making other connections. And a subtle way this may show up is, say you enter into a group or a work environment, somewhere where you're in an isolated environment where you and that person, you and your friend are dealing with and interacting with the same people. And every time you bring up someone who you just met in that group, your friend says something negative about them or subtly gives you a reason why you should not try to become that person's friend. Even if you are a very strong, independent person, it may create a dynamic in you where you don't put as much effort into getting to know other people because everything you've heard from your friend, and it keeps you isolated and relying on the friendship with that one person rather than continuing to make other friends. And another sign of trauma bonding is double standards for behavior. Say your friend is talking to you about something and you have a solution because you may have just gone through something very similar, and you're offering help to your friend because you don't like to see them suffer. And rather than take your feedback or your solution or see that you're coming from a good place by offering them help, they lash out on you and treat you coldly and say that they just wanted to vent, didn't want your advice. But then when the situation is flipped around and you're talking about something, they're always offering unsolicited advice. You may be constantly self-conscious about how you interact with this person because you feel that you do things that disrupt their mood. Hot and cold behavior. They may punish you with things like distance, dismissive behavior, and the silent treatment. When you're doing something that they're disapproving of, say you are starting to make connections with other people, you may notice that they stop texting you every day, or you're used to them texting you or calling you, or some type of routine behavior that suddenly stops. And it feels like a punishment because you went against something they wanted you to do. They're dismissive of you. This can be very subtle as well. And I'm just going to give you a personal example of how this showed up for me with a friend. I had a friend come to visit me, and I was so excited about them visiting me in my new home. This was their first time seeing my home, and I wanted them to have a good time, and I just tried to make everything perfect. I created this little video itinerary Proud of it. It was so cute. It had our pictures in it. It had what we were doing each day, what the outfit was going to be like, what the weather was to expect, and who we were going to be around. It just had so much information on it. And my friend never looked at it. And when she got there, I was like, did you review the itinerary? And it's so cute. And I think you would like it. I spent so much time on it. And she refused. She refused to look at this itinerary I created, which was kind of dismissive. And in a way, it made me feel like there's a lack of value in my effort. And another subtle sign of trauma bonding is the friend tracks you. And a subtle way this shows up is, say, it seems like they always know what you're doing. Like they're watching your movement on social media. They may not be doing anything as extreme as putting a tracker on you, but they tell you that they always know what your moves are, what you're doing, because they see your social media and they're kind of like remembering everything you do or collecting information about where you're at and what you're doing from other people and letting you know. It feels kind of weird and icky, but it's so subtle that you're like, I don't know, maybe this is what friends do. They insult you in very subtle ways. Say you're describing a situation with your friend and you're talking to them about something, and they say something like, oh, well, I would never let that happen, but you let people walk all over you all the time. And these type of little small digs, they happen repeatedly in the friendship. And they're always just putting little sly, subtle little ways of insulting you. Nothing that you would ever stop and call out, but you feel it. They repeatedly dismiss your concerns. When you bring up concerns in the friendship, they just dismiss them as you just being overly sensitive or whatever the case may be. They're not willing to look at their behavior and they don't take responsibility. And all of this is mixed in with intermittent positive reinforcement, love bombing, and it could be very confusing. You could feel like you're walking on eggshells around this person all the time. This type of friendship may leave you feeling anxious, insecure, lack of self-esteem, exhausted, confused, and feel like you don't have value. It's important to remember that a trauma bond is not your fault, and there are ways that you can remove yourself from these type of friendships. And it's okay to walk away from a friendship that doesn't feel good for you. Especially if you've already experienced friendship trauma, give yourself permission to leave friendships that don't feel healthy to you. Don't listen to people who say that if you're healthy, nothing will bother you. It is okay for you to take care of yourself, and you deserve friendships that feel healthy and safe.